Hey, Rick, what'd you eat last night?
I had a veggie club sandwich. A friend and I went to one of our favorite vegetarian restaurants. And it's a club sandwich, obviously, all those lovely 3 pieces of bread. And then it just has thin slices of tofu, carrots, cucumber, lettuce, tomatoes, alfalfa sprouts. It has dill. It had dill Havarti and Swiss cheese. And then what I love most is it's all drizzled with an Asian plum sauce right through the little sandwich. It's so tasty. It's so wonderful. And, I don't eat a lot of sandwiches anymore because, I don't really do the chicken thing. And I don't really particularly always like just a plain cheese sandwich. So to have a sandwich as a pescatarian that has like body and flavor and weight, it was so wonderful. Oh, it also had bacon, veggie bacon. The best veggie bacon in the world.
Okay. So you've won me over. At first, I was like, God, that sounds terrible, because I don't like club sandwiches. I don't like 3 pieces of bread. I don't like club sandwiches. And then I was like, ew, cucumber. You know what I mean? I was just like, ugh.
Yeah.
But by the end, I'm like, oh my God, that sounds yummy. Please, may I have some?
We'll have to go there next time.
Good describing. No, I don't want to go enough to go there and have it, but I'd rather go back to Ambar, but we're good.
Ambar, we love you.
Yeah.
How about you? What did you eat?
Interestingly, also a sandwich.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, mine is a Venezuelan sandwich, which could also be Colombian, but in this case was Venezuelan, called an arepa.
Nice.
And the arepa is, apparently arepa refers to the actual bread itself, which is made of cornmeal. It's a maize-based thing, and it's a very specific bread that they then sort of slice open, but not all the way, and they make kind of like a giant pocket, and they fill it with stuff. So that's what an arepa is.
Nice.
And in this case, it was filled with pork, like a pulled pork, and Gouda cheese, and some pinto beans with a red pepper sauce. And it was delicious.
Wow, the red pepper sauce really sets it over the edge for me. I would love that.
Yeah, well, if you ate meat, you would love this whole thing. And there's another place I go where I get a similar one, and it has avocado in it too, which is even better. But there's something about, apparently in Venezuela, there's a classic arepa which has pork and Gouda cheese. And then I don't know exactly. Those are the things that I think are definitely what's in it. And then I guess you put other stuff, either avocado or cream sauce or pepper sauce or whatever. Yeah. But it was very, very, very tasty.
Nice. I've seen some few vegetarian arepas on the menus, but they never seem that appealing to me because I think it's all about the meat.
Well, it's actually all about the bread.
Really? Oh,
yeah,
okay.
they have some vegetarian ones at this new place that opened around the corner from me, and people have been raving about them. So just so you know, the thing about an arepa is actually, it's the bread and is the thing that's amazing about it. So if it's a good place that you would trust, I would give it a shot at some point if you're up for it, because the bread is special.
Nice. All right. Will do.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of You Won't Believe What I Ate Last Night. I'm Kate DeVore.
And I'm Rick Fiore.
And this is our ongoing conversation about food, health, weight management, and our endeavor to be and stay healthy in a really tasty world.
With love, kindness, and compassion towards ourselves and others. Take a minute. Would you rate and review us? Look down at your phone. All you have to do is push a button. Give us some stars. And remember, you can follow us.
5 of them.
Follow us on our social media outlets. Our website is youwon'tbelievewhatIate.com. You can follow us on Facebook and Instagram at You Won't Believe What I Ate Last Night. And of course, email us your thoughts, opinions, any information at youwon'tbelievewhatIate@gmail.com.
That's right. And today we're talking about arguably the most important thing that any of us ever ingest, and that is water. Thank you. That was water sounds, in case you weren't picking that up. So, Rick, what is your relationship with water?
I have to say my relationship with water is one of the few relationships I have as something that I ingest into my body that I love and I adore, and I think I do well. I drink. It's always something I drink a lot of. I like drinking a lot of water. And I'm hoping that it's the one thing I'm doing that in the end is going to save me. The one thing I'm doing right. I somehow hope. It'll battle all the fried food. It'll battle the high volume of food. It'll battle the fatty foods. All of it. I'm hoping it
Well,
saves
it certainly goes a long way. That's for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, it definitely does. Yeah.
How about you?
I am not quite as good about it as you are, but but pretty close. I spend a lot of my workday talking to people about water because for voice, it's one of the things that you got to do in order to keep your vocal cords working properly is they have to be optimally hydrated in order to function, which I'm a good example of today since I'm a little sick. I've been drinking a lot of extra water to try to get my voice to not sound like this, which is how it actually kind of wants to sound today if I were to let it. So I do think about it a lot. I talk about it every single day with people. I'm educating people a lot. So it's very much on my radar. And I do, for that reason, sort of aim to practice what I preach. I feel that I pretty consistently fall a little short. I think I generally drink a little bit less than would be ideal for the most part. But I am better about it than some folks, I think.
Well, it's so great that it could be part of your daily conversation. That must be so helpful just to help you remember.
Yeah, it really is. So I always have water with me during those sessions, and as soon as it runs out, I go fill it up again, whether I'm interested in drinking anymore or not.
One of the places I struggle with water is I get a little bored with water. Like I drink so much of it, I always want more flavor. So as you know, we've talked about this. I've certainly tried a lot of the flavored waters, and then I like to do teas. I'm always looking for things that'll jazz up the flavor intake of this liquid. So that's the other thing I struggle with.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of ways to make it more interesting, to get more water in there. I mean, there are flavored drops, but I think a lot of them are chemically. Like they have those crystal light drops and everything now that you can just put in to flavor your water. But I'm not in love with the idea of adding chemicals to the water. But I guess if it's that or not at all, it's probably better, right?
Right, yeah, I would agree.
I am a fan of something like a La Croix. Like I do like flavored seltzer water quite a bit. But there's negative effects to that for some folks. If you have acid reflux issues, then carbonation is detrimental, not helpful. And it's not great for the, it's acidic, so it's not great for the enamel of your teeth either, I think.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But I like it, and if it helps, there's that. And as you mentioned, herbal tea is the next best thing to water, definitely.
Yes.
Milk, oddly enough, is a very hydrating substance.
I wish I liked the taste of it.
Yeah. No, you don't. You don't need to be drinking more milk, I think.
Well, I actually do think I love the taste of real milk, just not the milk we associate with grocery store milk. Like those few moments when I've actually had real milk that hasn't been, processed and pasteurized. I'm like, oh, gosh, this is what it's supposed to taste like. But I need a farm near me in order to, get that taken care of. Straight
from the cow, huh?
Cow to mouth.
Cow to mouth. Ew. That's really gross.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So drops, and then there's various ways of flavoring it up so that you get a little more. But then the question is, at what point are you destroying the benefits?
Here's a question for you as a voice professional, if you don't mind me asking. What would you say, just for the ordinary person, someone who maybe doesn't present or, isn't in the public eye, what would you say is probably the greatest thing you notice in someone, in their voice or how they present themselves, that is well hydrated? Is that answerable?
So what does somebody's voice sound like if it's well hydrated? Yeah. Is that what you mean?
I think I'm asking that. Yeah, like what's the biggest difference you think in how it makes someone sound if they're well hydrated?
Yeah, well, there's two things. One is in terms of the sound, it would be that it's clear. Because if somebody's vocal cords are dry, it starts to make them a little raspy or breathy. You can hear a lack of clarity and quality in the tone. So that's one thing. The second thing that's arguably more important than that is that if your vocal cords aren't hydrated properly, it increases your sense of effort when you speak. So it's at least as much, I would say, for the person you're talking about, just the run-of-the-mill person who's not performing, for example, or teaching and talking all day long. It's as much about comfort as it is the way it sounds.
Okay. Good to know. So, Kate, what is water?
Is this a trick?
Yeah.
It's
No. That was my clever segue to our next section.
2 molecules of hydrogen with a molecule of oxygen.
Very good.
In liquid form.
Wowza, you're smart. heart.
What else? What else is water? I have a feeling you might have an answer to that up your sleeve.
No, my whole thing is it's the basis of the fluids of living organisms. That's it, really.
Do you know what I forgot to look up? Do you have this information? How much of our body is made up of water?
Yes, 70% is what I was told. I
Thank
found
you.
one
I
that
always
said
hear
60. I found another one that
2/3.
said 70%.
Yeah, I think 2/3 is bandied about.
Yeah, agreed.
And then how much of the planet? That's the other one.
2/3.
That
That was the thing that's so
thank
amazing
you.
about the similarity about this substance and why.
I'm sure it's coincidence.
Yeah. Now, for those of you who no longer believe in like evolution, this may be a problem. But there is this whole idea that life springs from water and that water is necessary for said life to spring forth.
Interesting. I'm going to have to look into that.
Okay, do a report on it.
I will. I'll report back, you guys, when I figure this out.
And there is this other crazy idea that we've all, as creatures, evolved from water. I know. I'm blowing people's minds here.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Well, how much water do we need to drink then?
Well, okay, that's a great question. For so long, it's been recommended that it's 8 glasses, right? It's like a good round number. It's something that most people think is a good thing you can keep in your head. So that's generally still true from what I found out. What did you find out?
Well, there's a couple of ways that people will talk about it as a ballpark exactly. That being one of them. And the other one is people will talk about the amount of relative to body weight. So an ounce of water per day for every pound.
Wow.
Or I've also read a half an ounce per day for every pound of your body weight. So that's all a pretty wide array there. Ultimately, there is no formula. There's no way to know because it depends on so many factors. Mm-hmm. It depends on what you're eating. It depends on how much you're sweating. It depends on how dry your environment is. It depends on how active you are. It depends on your overall health. It depends on whether you may be breastfeeding or growing a human inside you. All kinds of things. Talking is drying, so the more you talk, even the more you might need. So it really depends on so many things. It's hard to come up with a thing. So you have to get to know your body because a lot of times the thirst sensors turn off. When we ignore them for long enough, they stop telling us we're thirsty. So when people start drinking enough water, one of the weird things that happens right away is that they start feeling thirstier.
Oh, wow.
And that's and that's because
Neat.
the body is so efficient that if we ignore the sensation often enough, it just stops telling us that I'm thirsty, which is sort of heartbreaking in a way.
A little bit, yeah.
So a lot of us are walking around with this sort of subclinical level of dehydration where we're just dry enough that we're a little tired and our skin might not be up to snuff. And, like we don't notice it, but it can make a difference. But the only thing that is universally true, the conventional wisdom that has been passed down from generation to generation is you pee pale.
Yes, exactly. Totally. When you pee
That's
pale,
how much water you need.
You're well hydrated.
If your urine is pretty much almost clear, morning, noon, and night, regardless of vitamins. If you do drink enough water, the vitamins do not have the same effect as if you don't, I am here to say. Then you're drinking enough water. And so it really varies from day to day and person to person.
And when you're peeing pale, there tends to be so little odor associated with your pee, too. That's another indicator that if you're peeing and something's odoriferous, check it out.
Because that makes sense, because the water is bringing the toxins out with it. And that's the whole premise. If by the time it leaves your body, it's pretty much just still water, that means that your body didn't need that water to get rid of stuff.
Yes.
It just was able to pass through. And that's what we're looking for, that you have enough water that it just passes right through.
Right. Exactly. Well said.
Thank you. Thank you.
So do you have an opinion for you? I know we talked a little bit about this, but what is the greatest health benefit of water to you?
I don't know how to answer the greatest one. I have no idea what the greatest health benefit is because I think it does so much that I can't prioritize which one is better than any of the others. I mean, it lubricates your joints, it protects your tissues, it works on your skin and on your voice and your eyes and your hair, and it helps get rid of toxins. And I don't know how to decide which one of those is the best. What about you?
I was going to land on what it allows me to process through my body, because I go back to that point I made in the beginning of the show, is that I think the single greatest thing it does for me is it helps me process everything. I think it's the single greatest reason I can move product through my system. so efficiently is because I keep
Yeah.
it lubricated. And to me, this is so funny, Kate. Are you ready for this? Because I'm so obsessed with eating. It's odd that what I would perceive as the greatest health benefit would somehow allow me to keep eating more.
Makes total sense. Makes total sense.
So yes, aside from that, all the other things you listed, I totally agree with. Super good for your joints, particularly as you age. And as we age, one of the greatest things that happens is our body dries out. Our bones dry out, our tissues dry out, our fascia dries out. So you have to keep lubricated. And water is really one of the main ways you can keep yourself healthy, because when those things become dry and brittle, you're more likely to fall. And when you fall, you're more likely to injure yourself. And when you injure yourself, you're far less likely to recover quickly, because that nutrient isn't moving everything through your body. The water isn't moving everything through your body.
Yeah, totally. And we lose water all the time through breath, perspiration, going to the bathroom, things that just happen all the time that we don't notice, we forget. But of course, you fog up a mirror. Every time we exhale, we're losing moisture.
Yes, totally.
And apparently, men need approximately 3.7 liters of fluid a day. Women need approximately 2.7 liters of fluid a day. Obviously, this is related to size more than anything else. If these people are healthy adults living in a temperate climate. And that would include fluids from water, other beverages, and food. And, interestingly, about 20% of daily fluid intake usually comes from food.
Really?
And the rest is from water. But obviously, if you're eating a lot of wet foods, like if your whole day consists of watermelon and cucumber, then you would need less water than if you were eating nothing but cheese and steak.
Yeah, well, odd you say that, because notice my reaction. I give it a big old, because I'm like, there's not much water in bread and cheese. It's like, how can that possibly be?
Yes. So Rick, how do you get your water? Do you buy bottled water? Do you drink tap water? Do you filter it? How do you ingest? What kind of water do you like?
I primarily drink tap water that has gone through a Brita filter that sits on my counter. I really, really work hard to refrain from buying bottled water. I will only do it when I am absolutely desperate. How about you?
Yeah, same for me. I do have a bad habit. I do have water bottles, but I do have a bad habit of sometimes reusing some of those plastic ones that I have bought water in, which is bad because apparently the plastic and chemicals are bad enough the first time.
Yeah, I used to think that was the best thing
worse.
ever for years. I'm like, I'm so proud of myself, because I went through this habit where my water bottle that I would buy, this metal one or steel one or whatever they're called, really good for the environment and really good for the water. I'd always lose them. I'd lose like 5 a year. I'm like, I've had it, because I've just birthed 5 new canisters into the world. I'm like, I'm going to carry around the same water bottle for 3 years. And then I'm like, oh, that's terrible.
Yeah, whoops.
Whoops, don't carry around the same plastic water bottle for 3 years, people.
Yeah. Totally. Right. No, I try not to buy it either. Like sometimes, another thing we didn't mention is that it's good for, a lot of times headaches are because you're dehydrated.
Yeah.
Very often headaches come from dehydration. And as probably most people know at this point, hangovers come from being dehydrated because alcohol is a diuretic, as is caffeine. So alcohol drains water from your system. So most hangovers are because we're dehydrated. So
as do all those
if you
sodas
drink a lot,
that we drink, that some of us drink. They're super dehydrating, particularly
Yeah.
Yield Diet Coke.
Yeah. I also have a Brita, and I prefer mine room temperature as well. I can tolerate other temperatures, but I prefer room temperature. I feel like I can drink it faster at whatever rate I want. Cold water, I have to sip. I don't like to drink the cold water. It might theoretically burn an extra calorie or two if the water is cold, but I don't think it's significant enough to be a big deal. And there's a big thing in the voice community that you shouldn't drink cold water because that ice cold water is passing by things that you've just tried to warm up, muscles that you've just tried to warm up.
That makes total sense.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure how much I buy into that, but I would never take it away from someone if they felt like it was helpful to not. But I feel like if you're about to sing and you want ice cold water and you feel like it's okay, then it is.
Great. Here's where I fall as far as the whole warm water, cold water thing is I really do think warm water benefits my digestion. Because one of the things, really learned from my Ayurvedic clinician is in the morning is to drink either room temperature water, but particularly slightly warm water. One, because it hydrates you quicker with maybe a little acid in it, like a little lemon juice or a little bit of lime juice. And the other thing it does is just lubricates the intestinal tract, and the warmness gets the whole intestinal tract to release, gets it to soften, so things are more easily ready to move through it. So that's one of the reasons I think when I drink cold water with a meal, I feel like it takes longer for me to process all that food because the cold water is encouraging your intestines, your digestional tract to contract a little bit, which means it gets a little bit smaller. So it's actually hard to move all of that food through. So I think that's one of the biggest things I like. Now, I don't always do it because, I always run hot. So I always get in this mind that cold water is going to help me. Let's talk about our old friend homeostasis, shall we, Kate? This idea of the temperature of your natural body, that when you inject cold water into it, that it's automatically going to try and bring it back to its normal body temperature. So I feel like I expend so much energy. I run hot. I feel hot. So I always want to drink cold water to cool me down, but I'm not sure it actually does anything to cool me down from the inside out. But I'm a big fan of warm water whenever I can and with meals. That's why I drink red wine instead of white wine. Not really.
Yeah, but that intuitively makes total sense. That the cold water would cause your system to contract a little bit, and the warm water would. I mean, think about just getting food off a plate when you're doing dishes. It's easier with warm or hot water.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah, makes sense.
I always feel better when I have tea after a meal. It helps me so much more with my digestion. Warm tea, that is, I should say.
Yeah, and peppermint tea is a classic in a lot of parts of the globe. Well, shouldn't we be buying bottled water, Rick? Because isn't bottled water so much better for us? Isn't it better water?
That sounds like a leading question, Kate DeVore. I'm going to answer a big old no on that one. What did you find out?
Well, yeah, I think a lot of bottled water is simply filtered tap water.
Yes, totally.
Dasani and Aquafina, for example,
They're
I think
still
two of
at
the
it.
leading brands, I believe, are still just tap water, right?
Yes.
And they say they go into all how that they filter it like this and this and this, but it's like the filter that anybody could attach to their own sink. I think it's more filtered than a Brita, because a Brita just it filters it. It doesn't purify it. There's a difference between filtering and purifying water. It's also true that the EPA pays much closer attention to the water in our drinking water system, in the reservoirs and wherever our water comes from, than it does to bottled water standards.
Yeah, exactly. Did you know? Hey, Kate, did you know if not for one ingredient, drinking a can of Coke would make you vomit?
No. What's the ingredient?
This is what I love. This is how it starts. While cocaine was long ago taken out of Coca-Cola,
Yeah.
the current formula is still formulated to get you high. Each can of Coke contains 10 teaspoons of sugar. This is 100% of your recommended daily intake. In normal circumstances, the extreme sweetness of this much sugar would immediately cause you to vomit uncontrollably. However, since all that sugar is addictive and keeps you coming back for more, Coca-Cola adds phosphoric acid, an ingredient that cuts the sweetness to manageable levels.
So wait a second. So they put in all the sugar to get you high, and then they put in another chemical that makes all that sugar taste less sweet.
Yeah.
Wow.
Coca-Cola's deep, man, isn't it?
Wow. Okay.
Now, I don't know if you guys know, on our podcast, we have a longtime producer with the show, Janice, and I mean, we've been doing this, Kate, for coming up 3 years. She's probably she's been with us all 3 years, and she's probably only been conscious for a year and a half of that time. But we like her.
Yeah. We like Janice. She's entertaining. Yeah, exactly.
And
but
she's gotten in
but
this.
she does drink a little.
She really does. But I say that because she just walked in and handed me a piece of paper. You know what that means?
Quiz time! Yay!
I just have to. It's hard to read because of all the wine spots, but I'll try and do my best. All right, Kate. Here's your first question.
All right.
How long does it take plastic bottles to break down and decompose?
Oh, no. Infinity and forever?
There's nothing about this quiz that's happy, let me tell you.
Oh, no.
That's why Janice made it a short one.
Yeah. Thanks, Janice. At least she got too bummed. She couldn't finish it. Yeah. I'm literally going to answer infinity of time.
Okay. Your first choice is A, 207.
Oh, I forgot.
Yeah.
Sorry. They're multiple choice. Okay.
A, 275 years or more. B, 350 years or more. Or C, 450 years or more.
C.
Yeah, 450 years or more. Do
Yeah.
you understand? And that's estimated.
Or more.
Yeah.
Because how do we know?
Plastics haven't been around that long, Kate.
Right. Infinity is what I'm saying.
All right. In a recent Canadian study of bottled water brands, what was found to be in the bottled water? A, water. B, plastic. Or C, water and plastic.
Definitely C.
You are so right.
And a whole bunch of other toxic chemicals, from what I understand, in many of them.
Researchers found that 93% of the water tested contained some sort of microplastic, including polypropylene, polystyrene, nylon, and a lot of poly things. They said the amount of particles varied from bottle to bottle. While some contained one, others contained thousands. These tests were aimed at discovering, obviously, the presence of microplastics in the bottled water. The research into how plastic affects the body when consumed is ongoing.
Oh, good. Thank you. Glad they're on it.
All right.
That's good. Yeah, apparently there can be tons of chemicals that leach from those bottles.
It's nuts.
Not to mention the chemicals in the water themselves. So it's a double. Yeah.
All right, here's your final question. To make the annual demand of water bottles needed, how many barrels of oil are used? A, 17 million. B, 22 million. C, 25 million. How many barrels
of oil to make all the bottles for bottled water?
Yeah, for a year.
In the world or in the country?
This is in the world for a year.
The highest one.
That would be 25 million. No, the answer is actually 17 million.
17 million gallons.
I mean, really, once you get past 17, I mean, nothing really matters anymore. It says, out of the tens of billions produced, 20 billion bottles are sent to the landfills. Some are incinerated, while most of these bottles are never recycled. Yeah.
And even if you try to recycle them, some of the cities that you live in, like Chicago, don't end up recycling your recyclables anyway.
I thought that changed. Is that still the same?
No, it's apparently a serious, serious problem still.
Okay, so I thought that was it for a while, but then the last couple times I've come, I feel like you now recycle. Like I thought before there was no recycling. Now there is recycling.
Oh, no. We recycle. But then the city throws all our recycling in the dump.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. Not all of it. That's an oversimplification, but a great deal of it. So, for example, if they detect one food wrapper in somebody's recycling bin, they will mark the whole thing as contaminated and they won't recycle anything in it. Or one plastic bag or what, there's all that. And then there's just a whole series of problems in terms of what happens when that recycling makes it to wherever it's going.
That is so depressing.
Yeah, it is. All right.
We know how to keep it lively here, don't we, folks?
That's right. On to question 3, which I'm sure will cheer us up.
That was it.
3?
You're done with those were 3 questions.
Okay, thank God. All right.
I know, it was too much of a bummer, wasn't it?
I know, totally. And I'm just picturing all those animals with all the plastics all washed up and, all that.
It's terrible. Okay, on to lighter notes.
Oh, I have a genuine question.
Yeah.
I have been in search of the best water bottle for years. I have yet to find one that doesn't leak in my bag if it falls on its side, and that it is also convenient to drink out of constantly without having to leave it open. So I'm not in love with ones that have a twist-off cap because I sip at it so frequently that it's too annoying.
Mm-hmm.
And I have yet to find leak-proof ones. So if anybody has a recommendation for a great water bottle, I would be really interested.
What do you think about water on an energetic or spiritual level?
I love that question. It certainly makes me think of flow. That's the most important thing I think of. And the magic of it feels like a feminine energy because it's gentle, and a gentle flow of water can create the Grand Canyon, as they say. So it's about the fact that it is both calm and gentle and serene. And think of all the context in which we imagine water and associate that with peace and the ocean or a still lake, and also can be the most destructive force on the planet and also the one that we need the most for life. So it's all of those things. It's the giver and destroyer.
Beautifully said.
What about you?
I agree with all of that. What I most like about it is I feel like it has an end game in mind. Because, water obviously flows. Generally, when it does flow, it flows from high to low, and it just keeps going. And so when you think about water flowing down a mountain to create rivers, which lead into lakes, it just keeps carving, right, and shaping as it goes. I love the idea that it has, what's the word? It just has longevity to it, that it keeps going, it keeps doing its work, that we don't quite know how it's going to pay off for us, because it's just going to keep flowing. It's just going to keep moving. It's going to change speeds. It's going to change in volume. And all of those things will have different effects on you as a person, I believe, and the world. So that's sort of,
and it follows the path of least resistance as it does that.
Yes, it's like a great teacher that way.
It always finds a way.
Yeah, I find it gentle. I love the idea that, as we know, water has the ability to dissolve, to chip away at things, to create new shapes. We know that it does it with over millions of years with rock. So I like to think of that sort of happening in my body, that it's sort of chipping away at something. And I think when I think of the water element, I think of it in context of my own journey with food and weight, and that because water plays the long game, I think it sort of influenced me to be like, I feel like I've been playing the long game, right? We keep coming back to this issue. We keep trying. You and I, this is what started the whole podcast, is we want to talk about our concerns about health, our concerns about our weight. So I feel like I'm learned to play the long game with my health and with my weight. So I feel like that's sort of the water element showing up in my life, that I'm just going to keep going. I'm just going to keep letting it move, try to get out of its way, and see how it can keep shaping me. So I think water also has this quality of resilience that I identify with, because I feel like I just keep coming back to it. I just keep trying it again and again when I feel like so many times I shouldn't. I'm like, just give it up, Rick. Just give it up. Blow up. Weigh 500 pounds. But there's something about that element that just keeps me flowing and keeps me moving.
Yeah, that's lovely.
I also think water has a lot of patience too, because it takes so long for it to make the changes and to make the shapes it needs. So I sort of love that idea also. So I think it's also helpful to maybe think about, for all of us to think about, like, how does water show up in your life? Are you flexible? Are you gentle? Or what's another way? Are you very...
Well, it also shows up, like, look at the hurricanes and tsunamis and floods. It's also like Kali. It also just comes in and destroys everything.
Yeah.
We think of that as being fire energy, but water has that yang to its yin as well.
Yeah, one of the greatest metaphors that we know is, like, in sort of spirituality and energy work, is the metaphor of the mind as a lake, right? And in that lake is contained everything. It's contained the low, the high, the ebbs, the flows. It has the destructive force. So I think it's always good, particularly when I think about food and my eating habits, I think it's always good to think about, where is that water element in your mind? Like, is it very destructive right now? Is it flowing? Is it calm? Is there ways to calm? Are there ways to calm the storm of the mind, right? Because I've been really working on my yoga practice. I'm like, that's really just sort of my biggest intention, is like, I got to calm the storm in my mind. I have just got to calm it down. So I've been thinking about that a lot lately too.
Lovely. All right. Well, drink up, everyone.
Drink up.